Hello. Are we live?
Hey, you guys are live.
June 17th Select Board meeting to order at 5 o'clock. Before we get started, this open meeting of the Select Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. We are now using Zoom webinar for meetings, which allows for the public to participate in the meeting as an attendee. Attendees must register to participate. The registration link is unique to the meeting. The registration link can be found in the description of the Nantucket Government TV YouTube live feed for the meeting. People registering to be an attendee must use their names, otherwise they will not be allowed to participate in the discussion. Attendees will join in listening mode, then can click the raise hand button if they wish to speak. The chair will call on those who have raised their hands in the order they were raised. If you do not have an audio capable device, you can call in. The YouTube chat will no longer be enabled. Any questions that cannot be verbally asked can be sent to the email and answered at a later time, and all questions should be directed through the chair. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to share your screen of your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recordings. All materials are on the town website unless otherwise noted. And let me go through to make sure that everyone is present and can hear me that will be participating in the meeting, starting with the members. I will call on you in the order in which I see you. Jason Bridges.
Here.
Christy Ferrantella.
Here.
Matt Fee.
Here.
Did I lose Melissa? We have our newest member, Melissa Murphy. She was on here. We'll just check in with her when she gets back.
That was a short tenure.
And then I'll go through all of the other staff members and participants as I see you. Amy Baxter.
Here.
Roberto Santa Maria. Libby Gibson.
Present.
Erica Mooney.
Present.
Rachel Day.
Here.
Janet Schulte.
Here.
Brian Turbett.
Present.
Tucker Holland.
Present.
Leslie Snell. I've been having trouble with your name the last couple of days.
Present.
And we've got Melissa Murphy back. Welcome, Melissa, our newest member of the Select Board.
Thank you. Sorry, I got kicked out for a minute. I had to rejoin.
We thought you quit already.
No, I'm here.
Last, just some ground rules. Sorry, I just have someone coming in. Sorry, meeting space is a little difficult right now where it's quiet. Please remember to mute your phone or your computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. raise your hand so that the chair that I can call on you as the chair, and all select board votes will be taken by roll call. I think that concludes the opening. We will accept the agenda as written. I don't think that there's any changes or additions. I will turn announcements over to Libby Gibson, the town manager.
Thank you. So the first announcement is relating to the census, and we do not have our census coordinator on tonight, but she gave us a little report. I'm just going to read through it. The June 14th issue of the Cape Cod Times noted that the Cape and Islands are on a path to diminished political representation and slashed federal and state funding if residents don't pick up the pace, responding to the 2020 U.S. Census. The census is of real significance as to how we get federal funding, says U.S. Representative William Keating, who represents the region. A low participation rate will translate into dollars and cents lost. This is an urgent matter. Census data is also used to determine how political districts will be drawn for the next decade. I'm going to skip around here a little bit. The 3 counties that make up the Cape and Islands are dead last among the 14 Massachusetts counties in their response rate, with Nantucket at number 13. Eventually, census workers will be required to visit every household that does not respond to the 2020 census. This is currently slated to begin in mid-August with precautions and pending the public health situation. Senator Julian Cyr is quoted in the paper as saying, "It is of the utmost importance that we have an accurate count of Cape Codders and Islanders in the 2020 census. Our current response rate is deeply concerning. If we don't get this right, Cape Codders and Islanders will lose representation and won't get their fair share of state and federal resources." Nantucket's overall response rate is currently 24.7%. Massachusetts is at 63.5%, just ahead of the national rate of 61.5%. Please take 10 minutes to take the census online at 2020census.org. Scratch that. 2020census.gov. 2020census.gov. Do it now and you won't have to meet with a census taker later. For those who are watching, did you take the census yet? If so, tell your friends, neighbors, coworkers how easy and important it is for our whole community. And as a reminder, Nantucket's Census Complete Count Committee is collaborating with the Artists Association to host a free family drop-in workshop this Saturday, June 20th from 10 to noon at 24 Amelia Drive. Participants will create wire face sculptures representing our community. I'm sure they are going to be social distancing and wearing face coverings. The sculptures will be displayed later in an exhibit to encourage others to take the census because everyone counts. More information about that event is at nantucketarts.org or on the town's Facebook page. So there you go. Next, the 2020 annual town meeting is Thursday, June 25th at 5 p.m. at the Nantucket High School. We have the second of our 2 pre-town meeting forums tomorrow, Thursday, June 18th at 5 p.m. via Zoom webinar. And that's all I have.
Okay, next we have our COVID-19 weekly update. Are there any opening comments or questions from the select board? Then I will turn it over to the public health director, Roberto. You know what, I actually can't hear you. No? Can anybody hear him?
I'm gonna go over to the other.
Oh, now I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm
Gotcha.
gonna go over to that old, the old microphone that makes me sound like I'm underwater. I spent $300 on this stupid camera and it's not working. The microphone. Anyway, so we're doing pretty well on the PCR testing and on the COVID side. We're almost 30 days in now with no new cases, knock on wood. And so far we've had, including the nursing facilities and the elderly facilities, we've had about 1,140 tested already. There are still about 21 tests that are pending, but we still only have the 14 positive cases. And as we know, we had 1 death. That is a 1.2% positive rate. That is phenomenal. That is phenomenal. So we're really glad to see that. If you look at the Cottage Hospital's website, you'll see that they also have a graph on how it's trending. You'll see that it is trending up. That is because we're testing more now. It's not because more people are feeling symptomatic. It's because now we have asymptomatic tests. So what's really coming down is that now that if you're an employer that is willing to pay for staff to get tested, or if you're a person who's willing to pay for your own tests, the hospital now has the capacity to do that testing. The testing is $150, but it is an immediate PCR test. It is the nasal swab. It gets sent off, and it takes about 24 to 48 hours to get the results back. So of that, so far, we've had about 120 people to avail themselves to that program, which is also really great. And then we've been approached by another testing group that will be discussing their program with the Board of Health tomorrow at 1, called CrowdRx. Dr. Bazos is on island, and they also are providing private PCR screening and antibody screening. So if you tune in tomorrow at the Board of Health meeting, you'll be able to see his presentation to discuss what they have available as well. And then ultimately, I think, let me see, what else am I missing? The sewer tests, we've had 3 of the sewer bed results come back, and so far they're still all non-detect. So that is excellent news. So we're really happy to see that. And moving forward, we're going to continue that on a bi-weekly basis. And we're hoping to get some educators out on the street to get brochures, information, masks, and things out to people, kind of like the old ambassador program that we did last year. Janet, I know you're on somewhere. We had the ambassador program last year. You might remember them with the blue shirts and the hat. We're going to do something very similar, except this case, they're going to be providing information on COVID, masks, information on isolation and quarantine, symptoms. The more information, the more education we have out there, the better. And it's proven to be very effective. And we're holding strong. So Nantucket, for you watching at home and participating, please hold strong. We're not over. It's not over yet, but we're doing well. And I want to thank every one of you for all the hard work that you've been doing. And it takes this whole island. So thank you.
Jason?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Roberto. The 120 people, was that the new program in the PCR testing? And is that the private businesses that can come in and pay for it themselves? Is that included? And does that get included into the hospital's numbers that we look at 5:30 every day?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, on all accounts. The sign up for that program, I forgot to mention, is actually on the town's website. Click on the COVID-19 button on the right and then move over to your left and it will say COVID-19 testing. Just click on that link. There's a little survey that you fill out and it gives you the information there.
Okay, one more question, Madam Chair, if I can. If I have a business, I can come in and pay for it. So that's not included in the $100,000 that the town put into it. So what's the $100,000 cover? What is, and the businesses do something separate? I just kind of want to make sure that everybody understands the differences.
Correct. So let me make a quick correction. I accidentally said that the Board of Health meeting is tomorrow at 4. It's actually at 1 p.m. I accidentally said 4 p.m. So yes, the $100,000 that was appropriated by the town in the two $50,000 chunks. What we're trying to do is prioritize high risk, high contact individuals. So right now we've been in conversations with some of the grocery and convenience stores groups on the island because they're the ones who have the most contacts between people every day. We're going to be also looking at a lot of some of the retails who would be the most high contact in the retail sector as well, and also the healthcare sector and the not healthcare and primary care, but first responders, because those are the people who are coming in close contact as defined by the CDC, no mask, 15 minutes within 6 feet. That is kind of a narrow window, but it is also really important so that we don't end up using all of the funding. So if an employer is willing to pay for all of their employees, that is paid for separately, not by the $100,000 that was appropriated. What we are asking people and what we have seen at the portico, and we are looking at it, is some people are sending their staff members in and saying, "Oh, I've got a sore throat," just so that they can get a free test. Don't do that. That's incredibly selfish. It's a really bad thing to do. If you are showing symptoms, then show up to the portico. Don't fake symptoms. It only makes things worse for all of us. But the groups that are things like the at-home health aides, things like people who work for Sherburne Commons, Academy Hill, Landmark, those are people who are coming in contact with high-risk individuals, and we're asking them to reach out to us so that we can use the $100,000 because they are in contact with high-risk people.
Matt had his hand up, and then Jason put his hand up again.
Jason can follow up if he's going to follow.
Yeah, mine just of the 120 people, does that include the private businesses? And if it is, okay, and if more private businesses come in, do we as in the health department hospital get all that data, or do we not have access? Is it private? You know what I mean?
The health department does get that data. The hospital puts it up in Maven.
Okay, Matt?
Yeah, I sent one employee for PCR testing because I wanted him. We've been quarantining everyone for 14 days. We wanted him quicker, and he'd been at quarantine at home, but we've been quarantining people on island for 14 days. So he went in and was tested and was negative. I'm going in, and he had serology testing as well. I'm going in for serology testing myself because I missed March 11th when I was pretty sick. I doubt I have it, but I'm going to find out.
Yeah, it's really.
And I paid for it. I didn't do that other thing, Roberta.
Yeah, no, it was really frustrating when we heard that. We had a specific group of people, all of them from the same business, show up in the same car. And when one of them said, "No, I feel fine," they said, "Well, you can't get tested." "Oh, wait, but I have had a tickle." That's not okay.
Jason?
Sorry, I got lots of, I find this very interesting. So if we do have people here come over a business and we want to pay for it, do we have the capacity to do that? So we avoid I got a fake scratchy throat.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah, we are able to do it if they are from one of the high risk categories that we're working on.
Okay.
So we are able to test that.
I just want to make sure it's clear if somebody's watching this and they have a business, can they send, I know it's tricky, can they send somebody so they don't have to quarantine or for whatever reason and pay for it with no symptoms? And it's not high risk.
Yes, you can go in, you can pay for it, and you can get it tested. It's because when you're showing up and you don't have any symptoms and you claim you have the sore throat, the hospital system has to absorb that. Yeah. And it's a cost. They have to eat that cost, and that's incredibly selfish. And also one of the things that's really important if you're going to use any sort of the private testing, because now that there is a lot of private testing out there, you can contact Quest Diagnostics, you can contact things like that. We don't always get that information. So if you're using a private entity to test your group, try to make it a priority to get that information to the health department if there is positives, so that in case there are a positive, we need to know that. We don't always get the information for people who do private testing. So please get that information to us if you're watching.
Christy?
Do you have an update on the serology test with the hospital?
Yes. So the serology test got approved by the IRB. They're discussing, I spoke with Gary just the other day, and I'm blanking out on that now. My apologies. They're having a conversation with their Boston counterparts to see how the study will be going, because you need to have the control group and the experimental group to do the comparison. So I know they were connecting with that. I don't remember where it stands, and for some reason I'm really sorry that I don't have that for you right now. Yeah, I'm blanking out on that information. My apologies. I will reach out to the hospital and get a statement on that, so I can get you more. I don't want to speculate on any of that information.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that topic? How about the emergency orders? Any update there? I mean, I think that we're just down to outdoor dining in the restaurants.
Yeah, we're just down to the outdoor dining, and from what I've seen, people are doing very well. It's the creativity is kind of amazing. That is for sure, that we've been seeing. Amy and I talk about we have phone conversations pretty often now, and not that we didn't always talk anyway through licensing. But yeah, it's been really great. People have been really great on how they. Obviously, it's not up to normal. It's not up to where they were last year, but we really need to applaud them for making the best out of a rough situation.
Melissa?
Thank you. And this question may or may not be for Roberto, but are we tracking that data of them doing well economically? Are we asking for feedback from folks in restaurants and retails for what their margins are like? Is that part of the Economic Recovery Task Force?
That's a Janet question or Christy question? I see both hands up. Janet?
Yeah, we've done one survey in April, and we're planning to do another survey, but probably not until later in the summer to see what the impact of some of these changes were. I think it's a little too soon right now to do that, but there is a plan. And we've been working with Remain and the Community Foundation, the Chamber, and the town to put those surveys together.
Christy, then Matt?
I was just going to answer the same question.
You did. Okay. Matt, go ahead.
I've spoke to probably 6 or 8 different people regularly in the restaurants, and the full service are not doing well. They are still down 90, 95, 96%. It's a bloodbath out there for some of these guys. I've been going down every night, taking a drive and just looking, and it's, it's pretty scary still.
Yeah, I think that we won't know for sure how everyone's going to make out until we get at least into July. And I guess we'll know sometime prior to the 29th if we're going into the second part of phase 2 or maybe phase 3. Do we? Christy?
Yeah, the 29th is when phase 3 is scheduled to start, but we still have a step 2 in phase 2, but the governor hasn't released a specific date yet.
Okay, so there'll probably be a step in between, and the 29th is the earliest that phase 3 can come in. Okay, just making sure I have that correctly. And I mean, so going along, I think Amy's here to walk us through any, additional action steps that we need to do in regard to helping these restaurants get open, liquor license changes, outdoor dining, street closures. We've done some of this already. There may be some, I think there's updates and then a few votes that you may need. So I'll turn it over to you.
Yes. Thank you so much. We put together, and I don't know if Erica, we're going to share the screen, as we call it, the Back to Business work group internally that we've put together in response to the other task force and all the input from there. Put together a written kind of presentation to give you more of a visual, because I know we've been doing a lot of this out of our heads the past couple of weeks. So I don't know, do we want to share that, Erica? And then I'll just run through it. And I have a list of motions at the end of things to approve and to take you through this. Thank you so much. As I said, this is the Back to Business work group. And again, this is internal. It includes myself and the heads of departments involved. So the building commissioner, fire chief, police chief, plus town administration, Culture and Tourism, and Health Department. So we all get together and review these proposals and these plans and put this together. As we flip through to the first, is the kind of outline of what we've done. Wanted to give you some updates on the timeline we put together, the recommended full and partial street closures as they stand now based on requests, recommended curbside delivery parking as we've discussed, kind of the guide that we've done for restaurants to include lighting, music, heaters, barriers, and signage for a lot of these outdoor spaces. New requests and next steps. As you see, some outdoor spaces there. As we had spoken about, we can keep going. Thanks. Back to business guidance. Thanks to Greg and Florencia, who also helped me put this together. God bless them. Have been gathering all this guidance together in this toolkit. As we've said, it's obviously very difficult to kind of go through the state website sometimes and find out the guidance you need. So they've gathered it together. And anytime, again, as you mentioned, step 2, I just spoke to someone today, didn't realize there were steps within phases. So step 2, we were expecting some word on it this week, if not last week, and that would probably start with interior dining and some other things too. And obviously, if there's any interior dining, it'll likely be at 25% occupancy. And a slow roll into phase 3 there. So that's just an outline of what's available, and that is on the town website for anyone to kind of click through and see that guidance. We can flip to next. We put together a timeline, and we don't have to go through each point here too. We've discussed, obviously, a lot of this has been fluid. We just timeline of all the meeting points, and this isn't even half of it, but just kind of the high points. So you can kind of go through as to who we've met with, who has been involved, kind of how we've been doing this really since we closed down in March. So we have March, April, May, and into June, the various task force, the various groups that have been represented that we've met with in town departments. So you have a better idea of kind of how this has been playing out, the consulting and the listening sessions and things of that sort, and the roundtables that we did. So thank you to Leslie and everyone who kept track of all of this for us. And we can move through that too as well. To next, I had outlined here for you, and we talked about this and reviewed and approved those that had come in prior to, a list of really kind of the main applications we've received for, on the left side here, private property extension modification requests. Most of these were on their existing property, parking lots, things of that sort, or adjacent properties with permission from the property owner. Everything in blue was approved. The ones in red, there's some pendings or under review. It's not that they're not approved, it's we're still working out a couple details. Westmore is just a tent. And then on the right, some of the public property requests, the main folks that requested either a sidewalk, a street, or something we're trying to work out with them as well for, it might even just be a table or two that would come onto public property. So that kind of gives you an outline of the main ones we've received. Others that we haven't received had current outdoor space or didn't require an adjustment of their license. So this is what I'll report as well to the state and ABCC as far as those that have expanded their premises. And again, this will be valid until November the 1st, unless otherwise revoked by the state with the emergency order. Okay, we can move up. Again, we'll go over some of the recommended street closures in the core. Again, these are based on all of the requests. We asked for folks to request, whatever they thought was going to help with their business, get together with their other folks in that neighborhood. These were the main requests that came down. As we'll see, most definitely, we think obviously the easiest one being in front of Cambridge Street there, Cambridge and Southwater, between Southwater and Easy Street, paved street, would abut 3 different restaurants that have absolutely no outdoor space. It's an easiest closure to do. That would be full-time, meaning there would be a Jersey barrier at the entrance. The side on Easy Street would remain open, and the loading zone that's there, the trucks usually back in anyway, so they would have access to that in the morning. So we wouldn't really be disrupting that too much. The other one that definitely North Union Street, in front of Gaslight, That's going to be, I put partial closure because there will be access to that alley where they do deliveries and things of that sort. They're looking for just in front of their facility there. And that will be most likely for the later dinner service. So the only thing it would affect is some postal truck parking. So we just have to work out moving that. But otherwise there'll be access for that. And then we'll shut it at 5 p.m. for sure with an additional barrier for that location as well. The other two that are kind of in play right now, Oak Street, that'll be an easy one to close, but they are still exploring both Ventuno and Town about you would have to build out or put some sort of platform to flatten that area if they were to use it, or make it a little bit more accessible or walkable. So they are still working that out. All I'm doing really here is kind of presenting to you those that have been requested so that we agree that we can certainly facilitate it, but they may not want to do it. So that's where we are with that. And behind the club car, they would like to do some things back there as well. There are some private parking spots involved, so they are working on getting that permission. And that's why we have put it as a partial closure in the evenings in case they do need access to those parking spots along where in the pink is. Those are private. Street is public, those are private. So we need to just arrange that part. But those are the main ones that we've asked for. Again, we've talked about if there's any major closures as far as Maine or some others, we certainly will consider that on probably a special event type of basis or a limited basis. But we are certainly open to that. These are coming through the requests that we've received. And again, and Dawn, certainly if you see someone ask a question, interrupt me because I can't see everyone, but.
I can't see everyone either. So
I'll keep going.
I need to yell out.
Yeah. I'm going to try to go through this and then present the motions for you. So hopefully that'll be the easiest way and do this quickly. And we can flip to the next, Erica, please. I have included here some of the recommended sidewalk seating in the core. And again, the core is really where we received the public property request to deal with. So that's why I'm doing this. I've listed the locations where there's going to be some tables. As you can see, we're testing Rose and Crown there to see how that works. I've listed the locations, and I've listed also if any parking spaces may need to be removed in order to facilitate next to Rose and Crown there. We have marked out 5 parking spaces. Basically, the tables are not in the street, but we started watching people not looking at the signs and walking into the street to go around it. So I was just concerned with the traffic on that street and wanted a buffer. So that's why that's there. Again, South Water, there's that private alley that they're working on those permissions. Main Street or the Whale started setting up tables today along the side of the sidewalk. You can start to see, again, we're testing how this all works, see how it goes. There's still plenty of room for people to pass, so that seems good. Lemon Press as well has proposed actually going out into the street with some sort of platform. We're reviewing that. Building commissioner has approved, but I'm having public safety look at it as well. If that's something we did, that would take out 3 parking spaces in front of them. They're also going to have tables along that sidewalk as well. It shouldn't take up much space. Club Car, again, is going to try in front there, and in back there's a little patio as well, and NIR has given approval for that. Backyard barbecue, we're still trying to work that out. Still trying to work out hopefully something on Straight Work property maybe, or that sidewalk across the street. It's a very tough spot with a taxi location. Broad Street, those folks doing Languedoc and After House along there are going to set up on the sidewalk along the street there. We don't think we'll need to take spaces out, but we're going to have to see how that is. A lot of places like that in Boston have not taken the spaces out and have lined along that sidewalk. So if that works, we won't need to do that. They're just not ready to set up till next week. At the earliest, and possibly 2 in Graydon House. Luckily, those are very wide sidewalks. And India Street Proprietors has worked out a deal for that sidewalk over there across the street as well. And we can flip to the next. Again, recommended curbside delivery, loading zones, as we've spoken about. There's approximately, I think, 7 in that area that would kind of connect to all the different stores and restaurants in different areas, converting those loading zones to pick up curbside delivery at 4 p.m. when most of them expire as loading, some a bit earlier. We would put together ourselves internally a template for those signs that would a space number as well to kind of help locate cars if people want to deliver to the vehicle, or it will be a 15-minute zone to allow for a quick in and out. If we do that, I just put that it equals approximately, if you, depending on the size of the loading zone, maybe 20 parking spaces max, that would be lost if they're just used for a quick turnaround instead of long-term or 1 hour parking later in the nights. Flip to next. Again, we're going to go over quickly some of the outdoor guides we're giving to restaurants for those that are going to be outside. Lighting, especially if you think of Cambridge Street and some other folks, putting lighting on some of the areas because it's not very well lit. So they may add additional outdoor lighting. A lot of them talk of, string lights and things of that sort. We've asked obviously for white, consistent, clear light, small bulbs, standalone, no wires or cords. We prefer battery operated or solar power, no candles, open flames. Umbrellas in some areas, they would put up individual umbrellas with lights acceptable. However, no advertisements on it. Exception is name of the restaurant. So keeping it consistent, clean, but to allow for that. Okay, we can flip. Also for restaurants, music, there's been a lot of discussion of that. Obviously, live music venues are not until a later phase and things of that sort, no dancing, things that would cause people to gather. But as soon as we get everyone set up here, and I think in step 2, to start with some of the acoustic solo artists, background music, things of that sort. Certainly the current entertainment licenses for streaming background music, things of that sort on the currently licensed space is still active. As it is in the state and Boston and other folks, a new live or recorded music entertainment permit is required for temporary outdoor space. This will be part of the motion I asked for later, is setting that up. So all these folks into outdoor spaces or even expanded spaces right now, they went into a parking lot, things of that sort. It's not included in their licensed premise now. It would require a new temporary permit. It's not automatic. We must approve it. So right now it's streaming and recorded music, but I think as we move into this, non-amplified solo artist music will be permitted as we get into this phase. No live band performances until phase 3. So nothing, large, big concert type of things at this moment. Okay, we can flip. Heaters, again, this is quick. There are going to be areas where there's outside heaters, which a fire department will certainly monitor, like anything else, not blocking access, and they must be adhere to the manufacturer instructions. And again, we will inspect for those as well, no cords and all of that. We can move that. And barriers, what we've talked about. So as you see, probably at Rose and Crown, just for safety purposes and to test this out, there are these, in that red box, there are the bike rack barriers, as they called it. I understand it's not pretty. We're working with everyone. We have some ideas for some art projects as we get this set up with the community to help make sure these are consistent and beautified. But I have them up there right now, thanks to the ballet company who is helping us with those to make it safe and let us see how it works. And I promise we're going to add greenery, things of that sort. So we have here just a purpose for barriers. We have to kind of mark some of the spaces and things like that. So these are some of the things you're going to see. As you see, Rose and Crown put a lot of plants, a lot of plant boxes are out there too as well. These other pictures are from the North End and in Boston to give you an idea. So that kind of rope lines, green light planters, things of that sort. So we're working with them on those stanchions. Okay, we can flip. This is a quick ad that's coming up, Mass DOT Shared Streets and Spaces Grant. So we're watching this. They just announced this program that will allow applications for grants, as you see, from $5,000 to $300,000. That will help support public health, mobility, and commerce in relation to this outdoor dining. Sidewalks, curbs, streets, things of that. If we can identify some immediate projects where this money can be used to help facilitate these things, they have a grant program. So this could be a good opportunity for us to help with some of these, over cobblestones if things need to be built or things of that sort. I think we can identify that. So that'll be the 22nd that comes out. And again, thanks to Valley Park of America, they are helping us. They went and delivered it today and have been awesome. So thank you so much to them. Okay, we can flip.
Can I say one note while you're talking about Valet Park of America? Just so people know, as they might be having concerns about parking, my understanding is that the National Grid lot will be available for valet parking beginning on June 30th, which is also when we start ticketing in the 2-hour zones. And also they will be starting on Friday the 19th to do evening parking from Broad Street next to the town building.
Correct. And that's helpful as there's a bunch of spaces in that area out. So they'll be right there. That's correct. Okay, we can flip to next. And signage, as we said, we're developing and helping them with the consistent signage. I'm including here Rose and Crown that did this very nice sign for them as we were testing this out to allow no pass through. Please use crosswalks, which no one read. So we adjusted, but we are putting that together. Obviously, you already see, the signs for masks and things like that that are consistent. They'll be similar for the loading zone changes, curbside pickup, and do not pass through signs. So that's part of this as well that we're doing right now. Okay, we can flip. Okay, so I outlined here hopefully to give you an idea of what we're looking for as far as motions. I'll go through them quickly. What we're asking for as we review this, I can't see that, I'll read from here. First subject, obviously, closed streets and sidewalk seating plans. We request approval of the overall plan as we've announced it to allow for continued collaboration with restaurants to expand seating to public spaces in accordance with all public safety, health, and ADA guidance. Again, these things do change, but these are the ones that we have at this time, and certainly we like to move forward. And as I said, we're trying to see how these things work this week and right now. Loading zones conversions, the request of approval to plan to convert the 7 core loading zones to curbside pickup delivery to vehicle zones at 4 p.m. or earlier where allowed. Town administration will create template for temporary signage, and zones will be 15-minute zones. The next, seating and service times for closed street. This is something I haven't mentioned yet today that we've talked about, but I'd like the board to indicate if they want to vote on this. Service times for expanded seating and sidewalks. Does the select board wish to limit street and sidewalk permits to a set end time or defer to current licenses? All current licenses allow for service of alcohol and food, mostly till 1 a.m. A couple might be different, but mostly that is the case. For example, I've outlined what the Boston policy, what their licensing board approved is once restaurants are approved, they can immediately begin service in their outdoor space, offering food and drink till 10 p.m. on weeknights, 11 p.m. on weekends. They also actually voted to allow restaurants to serve alcohol outdoors without food. But they did vote on that. And this is in reference to these additional spaces in public streets and sidewalks, and any other outdoor spaces that weren't previously approved. Next, entertainment permits. Per state guidance, any live entertainment or streaming music for expanded spaces must be applied for as a temporary permit. I'm requesting the board to allow licensing in this committee to develop the permit application process to review requests, present to the board for final approval. This would include expanded dining spaces and any special event street closure requests that included entertainment. This process would include any time limits voted on by the board in the previous motion. And finally, as I mentioned, acoustic non-amplified live music request approval for currently licensed outdoor premises to allow for these live entertainment acoustic background music type performances. For example, like a Cisco or a Gaslight that has this current license as well for those premises, they can certainly play it as their license currently allows for. So that is what I'm asking for as far as motions. Any questions?
Let me just make sure I've got it. So we're talking about the service in the outdoor areas that they're expanding to past what time, basically?
Correct. Yeah, if you would like to just defer to what their current license does, most especially in public streets and sidewalks, but also in locations that are moving to a parking lot where they don't already currently have outdoor space. Would you like to address that on an individual basis or defer to the current license?
I think we should discuss that. I mean, I think that we should probably look to Boston, but I'd be kind of more comfortable with 11 p.m. every day, as it's once we get into the middle of the summer, it's light out till almost 9 o'clock. And I don't know how much we differentiate between weekdays and weekends here in the summer in terms of people being out to dinner. It gives them a little bit more time to do another seating. That's just my thoughts. And maybe we want to discuss this before we go on to the entertainment. I can't see everybody. I can see Jason and Christy, but if anybody else has their hand up.
Erica, do you want to take it down for now, and I'll take it? Take it down.
Yeah, could you take away the screen share for now? But Christy, go ahead.
My thoughts are kind of to do a test and see. So I'm kind of erring on the side of allowing restaurants to be open later outdoors. And then if we see that this has problems, or, you know, inns or people who live in town are complaining, then we could maybe scale back. But I feel like starting with the approach of limiting to 11 could like put a hard stop to restaurants, whereas maybe allowing them to have a later seating time could open it up just to give them some expanded options this summer. I do think that the music should end at a specific time. If we're going to do entertainment or live music, that should maybe end by 11 p.m. But if they still wanted to enjoy food or a drink at least till midnight or something, I'd be comfortable with that.
Did we lose Matt, Melissa?
I don't see Matt either.
Yeah, he's rebooting his computer.
Okay. So I agree with you, Christy. I think that we should err on the side of being more liberal in terms of timing for restaurants, because as Matt noted, even anecdotally, we're seeing businesses down, 90, 95%. And why come out of the gate with such strong limits? I'm assuming, Amy, that in terms of the entertainment, you have a sense, and I was just trying to map it out in my head, but I couldn't go too fast, of like, if the Rose and Crown has somebody playing music outside and Town has somebody playing music outside, then suddenly we're going to have a cacophony of music, outdoor acoustic music. So I would really defer to you in terms of those reapplications of licenses.
Yeah, and if I could comment on that too, absolutely. And I think they're actually working together as a group. I don't know, Matt is up. Matt, I know had talked to some folks, but they were working together on some idea to obviously have some consistent music and to work together on that. So we were encouraging them, definitely to work together. Some folks already have outdoor background music, Ventuno in Town, so they would still be allowed technically to do that. So again, we're going to have to work with folks on how to do that. So I would definitely suggest maybe outdoor music at a certain time as well. And then you can argue that the unamplified human voice is not a violation of noise ordinance, which some people might be upset about. But, if folks are outside dining, technically, they're talking and things of that sort. So.
Yeah, I think it's going to be louder in Town for sure. And I'm certain that our inns will celebrate that with us, because that means they have people coming to stay and enjoy the island. And, it will help bring some traffic, hopefully, to retail. Maybe they'll consider some later hours, and it will have a different feel in Town. One of the things that I noted, and I don't think there's anything we can necessarily do about it, but the cost of purchasing, just the cost of purchasing things to move dining outside. And I just noted the umbrellas and decorating, barriers, if we can be somewhat forgiving in what our goals are for those aesthetics, because I don't want to burden businesses with such high costs to make this transition outside. And I don't even know what those costs are, but I think philosophically, that's where I'm going with that. So thank you.
Yeah, and I do think we did, we relieved some HDC requirements and things of that sort, but I know they all want to make it, if they have planters already, things of that sort, and, string white lights to make it easier to see, things of that sort, they certainly want to do. They want to make it look inviting. So, but absolutely, we're going to have to live with some things that might be harder in normal times for sure.
Go ahead, Jason.
Madam Chair, are you looking to get a motion discussion just on the entertainment permit part, or sorry, just a closing time, or?
Yes, just I want to start with the closing time and then move on to the entertainment stuff, if that's okay.
Okay.
I mean, you're welcome to throw things out there on both.
Yeah, I'd like to take them one by one because there's a lot going on. Thank you, Amy, for doing all the work. Everybody. So
Melissa? Oh.
I'm sorry, I just had one. Oh. I just have one last quick question before we move to the motion. Amy, are we considering, or to anybody, are we considering changing the traffic flow, like some street, Center Street or Federal Street, to just one way to accommodate this? Or are we going to continue to let people move out into dining on streets and not change traffic? Thank you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So thus far, no, I don't think we're changing. Obviously it's different. We need to kind of keep the perimeter moving as much as possible. And South Water and Easy are obviously truck routes. So the only place really where we're taking out that Rosencrown area, some spaces there because of the wide turn of trucks and things of that sort. So it has been discussed, and I know, I saw in Hyannis and some other folks doing that. The only place I thought of that maybe was Federal Street, but I hadn't gotten any requests or anything to move out there. But it's certainly something, again, there's no deadline for some of these, things may change and some other things may come up, and we're able to consider that. But this is based on what has come in, what we've worked with the restaurants on thus far. But as of right now, nothing is changing direction-wise.
Christine?
And Amy, can you clarify on the presentation we just saw? You said Boston passed it so that you can serve alcohol without food, or is that statewide?
That was specific to Boston. Other places might have done it as well. They have a licensing board that meets all the time, so they do kind of do. I didn't even know that was a possibility. That was part of that decision as well. They did it specifically. Obviously, they have so many restaurants and things of that sort that they made that exception.
But you still have to close at 11?
For these streets, for all these folks, they had an outdoor dining permit program for folks. They were able to immediately move out onto the sidewalks. And so that's what that was for. It was for any extension onto a sidewalk and outdoor space.
They have to close at 11 regardless of drinks or dinner. And for the drinks, you have to be seated at a table anyway.
Correct.
So
yeah, for everything it is.
What you're ordering, whether it's drinks or dinner or both.
Correct. And we've asked restaurants, obviously, to make sure food is available. Obviously, folks will sit, have a drink and stay, but that food will be available while they're open. But all seated, absolutely correct.
Okay. Jason?
So I think what I've been hearing everybody say is we all want to kind of take the more open, liberal approach in the beginning. Does that mean if we just go with the current, what everybody's normally doing, that they could serve food? I mean, nobody really wants to serve food till 1, right? Because they need to get their cooks out of there and they got to clean up and they're out by midnight, even if they stop at serving at 10. So are we saying we'll allow people to serve food until midnight and drinks outside until 1 if we go with the current permits?
Correct. I think that's what's going to happen. And the one thing, and I've talked to all of them about that too as well. They certainly want to have later seatings and things of that sort. People like to linger. The one thing we'll have to consider too, if we do take this approach and see how this works, is to understand for a lot of them how they base their planning on their profits, things of that sort, especially those taking reservations and stuff like that when they plan out staffing, that we don't shift like that. We're looking at this and want to make this decision, but understand that that's very important for them as far as their planning, reservations, all of that, a complicated kind of network that they want to do. So we have received a letter from some of them too as well, requesting that we do not limit till 10 p.m. because that would be hard for them. Yeah.
Jason?
So I like that. I just want to get a clarification. So thank you, Amy. So I like starting with that approach. I know the next thing we're going to talk about is the entertainment permits, but if everybody has to apply and say, we're going to put a speaker here and a speaker here, if we can, if we have to take that away, if it's being abused, right? We've had some situations last 4 or 5 years. If I know we have that kind of control, then I feel more comfortable just kind of, going till 1 a.m. In the beginning.
Correct. Yes, definitely.
I'd be okay with it too, but I'm just, what worries me is letting things be fully open, and then what's the criteria to pull back, and then we really look like bad guys. So I'm just wondering what does success look like? What does not success look like? And I don't know if Matt's the person on the phone, but I just feel like he's going to say something along the lines of we should go out slowly rather than go out in full and try and pull back. But
can whoever's on the phone say who they are?
It's Matt. Yeah, my computer died. I had a 15. Yes, I agree with that. And all of this is dependent on enforcement. If we're getting our weekly enforcement reports and, those all look good and we're checking everyone at all different hours, for the various entities, then fine.
Yeah. I agree. I'll just say, I agree. And I certainly have been working with everyone. I think they want to make this work. And the most important thing is to allow for dining and service for these hours too, as well. I don't think there's a jump on too many bands or things of that sort, maybe some background music. But I think the most important thing is getting folks in and, dining and creating that atmosphere for them. So that's the most important thing for right now.
Melissa?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just add a comment that the season that we're talking about is really so short for these restaurants. I mean, I think we're really talking about maybe 7-8 weeks, depending on how quickly this starts. So, for me, one of the criteria that would mean that we're failing is if we find that the noise, just the ambient noise of voices, it's so much that it's causing such disturbance in the community. And so we're really going to need the community to, give us feedback, and we're going to have to pay attention on how that's going. But again, just to reiterate, our businesses have such a short window to be successful and to capture revenue. I feel like going out too slowly is going to hamper their ability to earn revenue at a time when it's really, this is it. And this is the moment for them to do that. So I take a little bit of a different opinion. My opinion is let's, at least with the dining options, let's be flexible and let them try this. Let's see how it goes. And if we're getting a lot of complaints, if that's, because I can't actually imagine what else it's going to be other than maybe traffic. And we're going to get traffic complaints anyway, because there's not going to be places to park that people are used to. So in some ways, I feel like we're going to have to also be willing to take the dings to support our restaurants to have a chance at a modicum of success, and remembering that this is not going to put them into the Willy Wonka golden ticket category, that if we're lucky, they may break even this summer. And that's even doubtful. So thank you.
Jason?
I've talked to a lot of the restaurants who will possibly, be outside. And I'm saying, like, we really want to help. And I wasn't speaking for the whole board, but just for myself, I want to go as late as you can, but do it right. My examples were, if you got a rowdy crowd and they're, maybe you don't keep pushing 1 or 2 more rounds because it's going to bring, negative stuff your way. So taking a hit on losing that one round, this is just my example, versus getting more negative feedback, which could jeopardize and we have to pull it back to 11 or 10 or something like that. Let's just try to be smart and play the long game is what I'm trying. I've had good conversations. I think everybody I talk to, they get that and they're willing, this is, kind of, off the record conversations and they understand that. So I feel comfortable, starting off with a little wider net.
Yeah. I will follow up, Jason, with that and say, obviously, all the restaurants and myself and all the folks in the group, we've gotten to know each other real well the past 3 months. There's a lot of great communication. And I just feel good about that. And they'll call me up, Amy, can I do this? What do you think of this? All the time. So I really want to say that they've been collaborative and we have a great communication now. So I feel like, and that's how we've talked about this. Let's try this, see how this works. We may have to pull back on the sidewalk or push here. And they're like, yeah, okay. It's been great, honestly. So I feel like they're very open to collaboration and to adjusting. If, we have to adjust, I really do.
Christy?
I think another thing to remember is that a lot of this only works when the weather is nice. And so there's going to be nights that it rains that they won't be able to get any revenue. So I just think as much as we can be flexible and again, using that approach of let's try it. If the rest of June is rainy, that's a wash for them, literally. And I just think we have to think about things like that this isn't going to be every night, hopeful that it would be, but there's a chance it won't be.
Okay, I'm willing to go with that. Is there anyone that's wanted to expand their hours? Like people who are okay. There's nobody who like normally their license says till 11 that wants till 1.
Not in these spaces.
I kind of remember the Graydon House. Didn't we limit them to a certain, or was that
for entertainment, for music?
Not for dining outside?
There was, I think, but it's 10. Yeah, actually, you're right, 10, 11.
Just want to make sure we kind of cover everybody that would be open to if everybody's doing outside and they can be open till 1, we should probably let everybody do it.
True.
Music is a different story. We're going to have to talk about that next. But and I'm open to people opening earlier if they want to open at 4:30 and they don't normally. Get an early bird seating.
Right.
Because that's going to be key is to get more seatings with less people because they're spread out.
Correct.
Jason?
Are you ready for a motion?
Sure. Oh, Christy? Oh, hang on.
Sorry, just one more comment. I don't know if you want to add this to the motion, Jason, but I'd be comfortable with allowing alcohol without food if we want to copy something similar to Boston.
Yeah, I thought we were going in that direction. If they're going to be open till 1, they're not serving food till 1, but they have to be seated. And if it becomes a problem where people are getting up and, dancing around the patio all holding hands, that might be an issue.
Hey guys, it's Matt.
Matt.
Hello. Yeah, just remember the some of the places that we've had that are a little stricter on the 1 o'clock are places that are abutting directly residential neighborhoods. So when we discuss the entertainment licenses or discuss that, let's make sure we're aware of that.
Yeah, that's why I said that the music is a totally different story. Jason, did you want to go to a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to allow outdoor dining in conjunction with their current permit. Is that sufficient? Do you need more language than that? I don't have it in front of me what your recommendation was.
I would say, all current licenses will be allowed for service of alcohol and food, as their current license allows. You did bring up that great exception of Graydon House, and it should be consistent. So
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, everybody clear on the motion? Matt, you're on the phone still, right?
Can I just read that back real quick?
Sure.
So motion to allow outdoor dining with alcohol and food as the current licenses allow.
Good?
Yep.
Okay, I'll go through the roll call. Jason Bridges,
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella,
Aye.
Melissa Murphy,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. Christy, you have a follow-up?
Just more of a statement or question that if there are others who have a limited, like Graydon House, is there a possibility for the board or Amy to review if they apply for a later time and consider it for this year?
I was kind of thinking that that's what we were saying was generally okay if it's okay with Amy in that motion. Was that everybody else's understanding?
We can include that in
Or
addition.
do we need another motion on that? But Jason, you're talking and you're muted.
Yeah, I'd rather finish this motion. We're in the middle of it.
We finished the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, I thought we were still waiting for Christy to.
No, we finished the vote, but I think it was a point of clarification to see if that was part of it or if we need to make another follow-up motion.
I think
Was everybody comfortable that that was covered? Okay. We do, so moving on to the entertainment, we have one comment from Bobby Planzer. I think I'll just read it. I guess we do have Q&A again. And he said, I think the performer should have a microphone with them so that people can hear them.
I'll say that gets into live bands and things of that sort. I think it's a different distinction. We're looking at background music right now and as we move into the second part of this phase and things like that. We start getting into their premises and things of that sort, that will consider those entertainment licenses valid as they are written. And for additional space in that instance, if you had a singer or something, an additional outdoor space, that would be an additional permit, entertainment permit for new space. So I think we're just trying to get everyone open. And then we'll work on those additional permits as well. If they have a current license for that right now, as they get into those spaces, that should be fine.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with background music and single person acoustics, definitely until 10, kind of anywhere. But when we get beyond that, I'm going to get a little nervous about noise complaints. And we probably need to review them in more detail. I don't know what everybody else thinks on that. Any comments? Jason?
Yeah, that's a tough one, Madam Chair. You've got, tree bar and, back bar, which kind of already have that. And I would love to have really light background music, right, till midnight, but it's got to be light. And I know it's a slippery slope, and it probably won't happen. So maybe this is where we maybe do a little bit of restriction and just say nothing until after 10. But where do these other ones stop, right? Tree bar and some of the other ones.
All right. For those with background music licenses, actually, so not live entertainment, but in those folks, you can get into that point where the currents can start operate in that so long just
Amy, we're losing you. It keeps breaking up.
Oh, sorry. Oh no.
Oh.
Hear me now? Okay. Just current licenses, we could start to, work in as far as those are right now. The only outdoors are like Cisco, Gaslight. Obviously, if they had someone in there playing right now, the only concern was that they would play it loud enough to be heard past the premises a little bit much. Right now, it's fine in the premises. So that's why we're saying in step 2, as they start to allow for indoor, they had that music playing, had a band there. we'll get into that in that aspect. But it's just as we move out into spaces, that'll be a separate application.
Melissa?
Thank you. I just wanted to echo Jason's concerns and to reiterate my comment from earlier that I think it will be really important to almost see a map of where the music's going to be playing or what's playing where, because my concern is that now everything is moved outside. And, even if you have a table of 6 and, there's kids and it's loud, and then you've got background noise competing between restaurants and possibly entertainment, it could be more disturbing than it could be enjoyable, especially if I'm sitting at, Queequegs and hearing something from somewhere nearby. So I just want to be really thoughtful about, and I think I agree, this is a place where we could roll out a bit slower and see what the noise level is like and go up from there. Because I don't think the music has a bearing on people's ability to earn income like dining would. So that would be my position.
I'm just going to read one public comment and then you, Christy. Jeff Ross said, can Amy's office request thoughts for compliance from musicians? So maybe that's
yeah, and I know that's certainly
information gathering.
Correct. As one of the motions to develop the permitting process and outline that for you and for others too as well as we move forward into this, and certainly any comments from them. It's an industry too that's probably not being thought of, the live musicians and DJs and things of that sort that are completely out of work at this point too as well. So that's the concern.
Christy, then Jason, and then I have another question.
Yeah, I agree with Melissa that it's something that we could slowly roll out. I also know Matt brought up a Monday's meeting about trying to do a collaboration between restaurants and musicians and trying to have some way to maybe stream music across different restaurants. So I think that would give restaurants time to start thinking about that and planning it and seeing how it could be implemented, and then we can revisit it. But at least gives time for the planning and seeing kind of what Melissa was saying, what the noise level is going to be already with just moving outdoors. Thank you.
That's good. Jason?
Yeah, just a clarification on, maybe Christy, this, well, I'm Amy, on someone with a guitar with no amplified, no speaker. Is that phase 2, second step? Is that phase 3? Do we know that yet from the state?
Oh,
Christy?
I talked to the state today specifically to ask kind of about gaslight, and the concern with music that I was told is that when you're singing, there's concerns about droplets of COVID being able to spread. So that's why those are kind of on this like phase 3, phase 4. So they didn't give a clear answer of if somebody with a guitar, but it would have to be, so distanced enough so that if the musician had COVID, it couldn't spread to the people sitting around. That's the best answer I got.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Greeter typed in, how will too loud be determined? Who will make the determination? I think that it would be noise complaints, but Jason?
I think that's why we would stop it. We would start it at 10, like what Melissa was saying. We start slower there. And so even if it is a little loud, like we're done at 10 as it gets really dark in the summer.
Okay, do we need a vote on this, Melissa?
I'm sorry, Matt mentioned this earlier about enforcement, and I think to Bill's question, how will we be, walking around and looking and assessing all of this? I mean, I'm assuming that, I actually don't know what I'm assuming. How are we going to be monitoring this?
You're going to be in town every night from 10 till 1, right?
Right,
Walking
Amy?
Around. That's the new member initiation.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Isn't that hazing?
Say,
Libby?
Maybe Amy can
Sorry.
answer about the enforcement, but there are not any CSOs that are going to be downtown very much that late. So there is not really, there's not going to be a lot of active enforcement going on. We are going to have to rely on complaints and compliance from the restaurants. And they're really going to have to, toe the line a bit. One slight additional thing that we're really going to need their cooperation on and their help with is trash and debris from food out in the streets and sidewalks. Because I can see that a lot of that is going to land not inside the restaurant. And again, we have limitations on DPW staff, and we're going to really need cleanup every night.
Yeah, the sidewalk and street cleanup is going to be a lot more significant. But yeah, I mean, I agree. We are going to have to wait to hear feedback from people. And this is going to be moving very quickly because it's already more than halfway through June. So we're about to most likely get slammed around July 1st on this island. But so are we thinking that in terms of do we need some kind of a motion about allowing background music and potentially like a single guitar player or like piano player up until 10? Or Amy, go ahead.
We could, probably combine. And again, as far as enforcement, I certainly will be out there and can certainly provide feedback I get a lot of personal feedback from folks and any sort of complaints that come in through dispatch and other forces as well. And obviously health inspectors and others are going to be out a lot as far as distancing and those. So I'll obviously keep track and report as that comes through. As far as the motions, we probably combine the two, the entertainment permits and acoustic non-amplified live music, allowing for us to vote to allow us to establish this process for the temporary permitting entertainment permits for new and expanded spaces that we'll provide and that the board will ultimately sign off on, and to allow for background music, single non-amplified music, and existent licensing places. So I think those two together could make that easier as far as entertainment in one.
Okay, we do have 2 public comments. Jason?
Did you take public comments? Go with that. I was going to make a motion.
Okay, just hold up for a second. Jeff Ross said we have plexiglass protection specifically designed for this. I think what Christy was talking about. And I think he sent you a photo, Jason, he said.
Yeah.
So maybe you can share that. And then Art Gasparo said, if it would be helpful as related to street closings, the traffic safety work group could convene additional meetings to discuss and advise the town manager and the board. The TSAW provides a positive forum with many of the interested parties, including police, fire, DPW, as well as citizens. We have a meeting at 10:30 tomorrow, though this is not an agenda item. So that might be helpful. Things are moving so quickly, but
yeah.
Jason?
Yeah, I really wasn't. You said a lot there, Amy, on the 2 things, and I don't know if Erica could got all that. So I think combining them makes sense. I will make that motion, but I didn't catch all the wording.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I think I combined the 2. I might have for some of it, because I think the first one, entertainment permits, is correct as stated to allow us to develop that program and permitting process that will allow you for final approval. So I think as written on entertainment permits is fine, to allow for limited. And in addition, the second motion would allow for requests for approval for currently licensed outdoor premises to allow for limited live entertainment as background music. So I think both motions are written probably appropriately as what we discussed.
But what's the time? And the time is ending at 10?
The time would be ending at 10. As I wrote, the motion was to request approval, so they would certainly indicate if they were looking to do that, so that we can write that guidance appropriately.
So,
Does that make sense?
Sorry, just clarification then. So this isn't a blanket approval. You're saying that each establishment would do their own application?
Correct.
Christy?
And this application would be approved by Amy and the Back to Work group, or is it coming back to select board?
It would be reviewed, and then it would certainly be presented to you, the list of, as you discussed too, wanting to make sure you didn't have too many different disparaging things going on at the same time, so that you'd be allowed to review the big picture. Certainly, current licenses can probably be approved, but it would come back to the board, at least for a large approval as to whatever comes in. So we would present it back to you.
But does that mean that no one can have any music for the next week?
They can have their, well, we can do it. It depends on, how you want to do that. If you want to allow for that and we just report back to you.
I mean, I'd prefer for them to be able to at least have background music until 10 p.m. immediately.
Yeah.
Because I think it does play into the whole ambiance of the dining experience, even though the money doesn't come directly from that. Jason?
Could it be both? Could we say, okay, starting next week you have background music, and we'd like you to submit something so we have on record of is it 2 speakers, is it 6, can we do both? I mean, it doesn't have to be an engineered sketch. It could just be like, here's what we're going to do. So if we have to check on them, if there is a complaint, we can see what they submitted. Can we do both quickly?
That's fair. I think that's fair.
What does the board think? Is that okay to ask?
Melissa?
I think that's more than fair. And I would also say, when there's some questions on it, the Back to Work group is a great collaborative group who could probably come up with solutions or answers really quickly without the burden of having to wait to the next select board meeting. I think if there's substantive changes, it needs to come back before this board. But if they're, creatively operating within their limits, and they need some guidance on what that creatively is, I defer to the Back to Work group to make those decisions. Again, we don't want to be in the position where we're hamstringing businesses from their earning potential right now.
Okay, shall we go to a vote?
I'll second the motion.
Oh, thank you. Are we good with the motion? Do we cover everything? And we're ready. Okay.
I'm so sorry. I'm not.
Go ahead.
I'm not 100% clear on the motion, and based on past experience, these things have to be crystal clear, or else there's immediate questions and it gets difficult.
No, thank you. Can we try and clarify?
You want me to are you going to put up? Okay.
Oh,
So I'm sorry, these are the 2 motions, right? Regarding entertainment permits and acoustic non-amplified live music? Is this where you were reading from before, Amy?
That's correct. And I think the motion is to allow for background streaming music, until 10 p.m. And to adapt this temporary entertainment permit system for other requests in live entertainment, and just to the word to catalog all of what's going on in what spaces, but they would be allowed for background streaming music until 10 p.m. in these new spaces. Correct.
Everybody good with this?
Libby?
I can already see what some of the questions are. So just to be as clear as possible, background streaming is allowed until 10 p.m., starting whenever they want. However, like an individual playing an acoustic non-amplified instrument I'm not clear on that. Is that or is that not allowed? And if it would be probably good if they had the plexiglass shield or whatever. If it's allowed by the state guidance for one person, which I'm not clear on either. I just think, so are we saying that that's allowed via them?
No, we're saying,
Isn't that allowed in the next phase? The performer?
Okay,
Live.
so is it just background streaming music right now till 10?
I think so. Am I?
correct, non-live music, as we call it, non-live music, streaming music, background music, and then additional requests as they come up, as Melissa mentioned, to be reviewed and decided on by the work group and reported to the board, and not to have to do final approval by the board.
Okay, so an additional request would be what?
Anything beyond that limit, or live band or live music.
Once
in these
allowed.
cases. Correct.
Or later than 10?
Anything later, anything that is later or different, obviously, from the background music limitation, and for live entertainment in these outdoor expanded spaces that are not currently licensed or on public property.
Matt has a comment. Matt?
Yeah, my understanding is in phase 3, small venues will be allowed. I'm not sure that they've said what rules, it would be 25% or 50% or who knows. And number 2, what happens with street musicians? Are they all, what is our understanding of those?
I can answer I can answer that. Our office issues those permits. We have not issued any street performer permits this year. Obviously that was on hold as we were closed, and now the policy is that because of the expansion onto the sidewalks and things like that, and the limit on live performances, that we have not issued any permits. That is on hold until that phase comes up. But because of the spacing needed on sidewalks, lines outside of stores or restaurants and outdoor dining, that we did not want to add to that. They need to be allowed to expand. So no permits have been issued for that at this time. And it's on hold.
That's great. Matt, again, that's great, because one of my concerns was if we were still allowing that, they'd just set up outside next to the tables.
Yeah, not yet. I mean, it may happen, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. But yeah, we have put a hold on that for the time being, and probably for a good while until that changes.
Okay. Are we comfortable now with what the motion is and what it means?
More.
I mean, I'm serious. I want to make sure that everybody gets it. Christy?
So just to be clear, a restaurant is expanding into outdoor dining. They will be able to stream music, or they need to apply first?
Both. Right? They can do it whatever date we say, but it has to be something on record how they're doing it. That way, if the police or anybody has to go check, we know what is on record that they said they were going to do. So if they add to it, then we can have the discussion. So I think
what date are we saying?
It should be something we can do immediately with them. Correct.
That's what I was hoping. Melissa?
Perhaps instead of the language of an application, what we're asking is similar to like the emergency orders with construction and landscaping. We're asking restaurants to register, and they will register with Amy's office that what kind of they're doing this, and what they're doing, how they're using their background music, so that her office has record of that registration and their intended use. It's not an application that can be approved or denied unless they're seeking something outside of what we just discussed was the permission.
Okay. That seems consistent. Amy, you comfortable with that? Okay.
Yeah, we would issue, just like we have to issue an updated liquor license that's temporary till November 1st. We would issue a temporary entertainment license along with it. So it'd be on record and official.
Okay. but it's not going to stop them from starting music in 5 minutes. Okay. Let's do a roll call vote, please. Jason Bridges.
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella.
Aye.
Melissa Murphy.
Aye.
Matt Fay.
Aye.
John Holgate, aye. So I think that wraps up our decision points, and we'll continue to get updates on this, right? This has a lot to do with our Economic Recovery Task Force, but there's further update? Jason, are you raising your hand?
Yeah, I want to say thank you to Amy for the presentation. I was taking notes and had different thoughts. I just want to throw it out there that after we get a couple weeks and start feeling this out, and we probably have to make some tweaks, I would love to, and this is more to encourage the businesses out there, once they get going, get their systems in place, to maybe start trying to collaborate with nurseries to, not that they can advertise their barriers and their greenery, but to try to get creative that way. Second thing is I would love to see artwork around from different artists or a local nonprofit, try to pull in the arts and culture part into this. Not right now, but in 2 or 3 weeks, to just, really, I just think there's some amazing things that we can do. So I would love to encourage us to, once we get things going, to go that route. So there was the art, it was the barriers. I'd love the collaborative opportunities that we have. And then now that we're voting on this, I would love to have just a weekly update, even if it's, here's what's really working, here's where we had to tweak it a little bit, if we can, Amy. You already brought up the valet, which I think is going to really help on June 30th, Dawn, of getting people to come in. And do we need to vote on loading zones as well?
Thought we had covered that on Monday, didn't we?
I think so. I added those just to, if you wanted to just agree with, the direction we're heading, and obviously things are going to change, but making sure we're in compliance with all these things. And yeah, I just put it in for detail's sake, but you did.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we covered that on Monday. No, yeah, great work on all of this. It's a lot this year, trying to figure it out, and hopefully we can keep the businesses going. Economic Recovery Task Force. Janet, did you have an update beyond what we've already talked about?
No, most of the work that has been involved with implementing the recommendations of the task force have been focused on restaurants. There is still some other things to pay attention to. We are working to convene the task force again to review the progress that we've made on the recommendations, and I'm working with Jason and Christy in her role as the chamber president to talk about what that meeting would look like. Currently, it's scheduled for the 29th of June.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
PIO?
Okay, so with PIO and Town Services update, I'm told that we just have a lot of high activity ongoing through the town website. We are working on getting some outreach out for beaches. We're working hard on beach signs. We're thinking about doing a video. We are a bit concerned about beaches this summer and the need for social distancing and the other, rules of the beach for the summer that are going to be a bit different. We also are going to be working on a radio spot for that. So just FYI. And another thing that we're doing is working on a sign for all businesses, a consistent sign that shows what the safety measures are that people can put in their windows. And town offices are still not open to the public, although we are serving people remotely, and we haven't had any complaints that I know about. So we're continuing to do that. We're monitoring what other towns are doing. Many other towns are also still not open to the public, and many other towns also do not have a specific date as to when they are going to be open to the public. Some are open, some are limited. So we're just monitoring and making sure our safety measures are fully in place before we launch that. And we're thinking possibly sometime in phase 3. A very frequently asked question: when is the Registry of Motor Vehicles opening? Obviously, that is not a town department. but that doesn't stop people from calling our office repeatedly all throughout the day, asking when they're going to be open. And most recently, we are told they hope to open Nantucket sometime in July, and later on today I heard or August. So that's not very great news for people who need things from the registry, but that is unfortunately what we're told.
Thank you. Melissa?
Thank you. I wonder if there's any consideration on that summer 2020 link on our website. I'm not sure if the April 27th joint letter that was to our seasonal residents, if businesses are sharing that link in terms of a guideline of here's what the town is expecting for the summer, is that still the message we want to have go out? And then on that link, could we put some quick links to the beaches so it's a little bit easier to find, our masks, and some ideas I was thinking about was obviously once we get the restaurants going, what's happening with the restaurants downtown, or what parking is going to look like, alternative modes of transportation. I'm just thinking of really quick, digestible, even links so that, for example, I as a business owner could say to my guests who are coming for 2 weeks stay, here's what the town expects. And I get a little hesitant to send that out because I'm not sure that April 27th letter is still the tone that we want to take with our turnover visitors, our quick turnover visitors.
I don't know if Christy wants to comment, but I think that letter it's still out there, but I don't know if this is correct. It maybe sort of has been replaced with the seasonal guidance from the Cape and Islands regional group. And our letter is still on there just because we never, retracted it or anything like that. But I think the thing we're pushing out more is that seasonal guidance from Cape and Islands regional group.
Do we think that it should be replaced at this point with that? What do you think, Christy?
Yeah, I was going to say the Cape and Islands letter, I think it was also updated this past week and is in Portuguese, Spanish, and a couple other languages. And so I think that letter, it's updated for everything that's in phase 2 and what's open, and kind of gives people the idea of what the Cape and Islands look like this summer.
So we could replace the April letter with, we already have posted the updated letter that Christy mentioned. We could certainly take the April one down and leave the current one up. Oh, Janet?
The letter from Senator Sear is on the website, but it's not on that drop-down page. So I think we ought to have that moved so that it's replacing the link that was the former April 27th letter. If that's the guidance that we're going by. It's easier to see it that way.
Melissa?
Yeah, thank you. I would totally agree with you. I think that summer 2020 page is such a great landing page, and for inn owners, real estate agents, anybody, it's such a quick link and sort of an obvious one that you would want to click on to know what our community expectations are for summer. So that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to move on to the public comment section of our agenda for items not related to COVID-19 or any other agenda items.
Sorry, was this when I was going to say something?
Would you like to make a public comment?
Yes, please. My public comment is to Rosemary Samuels, the Nantucket community, and the select board. 2 weeks ago, I made a statement at the board meeting regarding recent events relating to the African Meeting House vandalism. It was the wrong statement for me to have made. What I should have done then, and what I'm doing now, is to respond to events at the March 11th select board meeting, specifically with regard to the public comments made by Mrs. Samuels. My actions during her comments were inappropriate, and I let her down by responding the way that I did. I extend my heartfelt apology to her, the Nantucket community, the board. I'm not proud of my reaction at that meeting, and I obviously overstepped the bounds of my position. We're in a new era right now, and it is hard sometimes to know what the right things are to do. For me, I am putting the March 11th meeting in front of me, not behind me, and I, along with others in town administration and board members, are committing to concrete steps for positive racial equity change within and outside of town government. And we will be detailing some of these steps a little bit more later in this meeting and in the coming weeks. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Libby.
Thank you, Libby.
Are there any other public comments? I don't see anyone on Q&A. Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, I just, we did this morning, I think at our swearing in, but I just wanted to give some more good vibes to the town clerk's office and all the volunteers that came out for the election yesterday. It really was impressive. It felt safe. It was in the gym. It was, I just thought they did a great job, and they need to be recognized for that. Even if they didn't, people who didn't feel comfortable going in to vote, know there was a lot of work put into it to try to make it as safe as possible. I just wanted to put that out there really quick. And I also wanted to, I made an apology before to Rosemarie in that situation. And I want to echo what Libby said. And, when that happened, I leaned over to Libby and I said, maybe you can go take a walk. And so she was doing that because I asked her to, because I wanted to hear what Rosemarie said. And so Libby was acting on what a board member was suggesting to do. And I don't think a lot of people know that. And I just wanted to put that out there. It doesn't make anything better or okay. It doesn't justify anything, but I just wanted to make sure that people knew that. I've explained that to my fellow board members. Because in that situation, I didn't know what to do. I wanted to hear Rosemarie, and that was my reaction. And I wanted to let everybody know and our community know that that's what I did. And if any board members wanted to comment on that, I'd be happy to hear what they have to say.
Thank you, Jason. I think we touched on this last week as well, but I just wanted to make sure that, for other people who might be watching, that they know that generally during public comment, we take in what people have to say and we don't necessarily initiate a conversation on it. It's usually for people to bring things to our attention and for us to hear them and follow up with potential agenda items. So I know that there's been some comments that we were dismissive at that meeting, and I just wanted to put out there that that generally we listen and we take it in. And I actually did reach out to Rosemarie Samuels afterwards to see if she wanted a follow-up agenda item or something along those lines. So just for clarification. Melissa?
Thank you. I loved what Libby said, that I think for her and for this board and probably for all of us in town government, the March 11th meeting's not behind us, but is in front of us. And there's a lot of lessons to be learned. And I think for me, one of the biggest ones as an observer of that night is creating space to hear from members of our community. And there is a public comment is a difficult place to engage in discourse and feedback. And so if that's not the appropriate space, or it creates an uncomfortableness or an awkwardness, then it's our obligation to create that space where community members can come and talk to us about their frustrations and how they're feeling unheard. So I think I've heard from you all in the past several weeks that this is a commitment we're making, and I'm hopeful that we can talk some concrete steps soon about what that space will look like and how we can start providing these open forums to increase our communication not just with the select board and town administration, but I assume with our police department and public safety as well. So thank you all.
Thank you, Melissa. We will be talking about items related to this further on in the agenda. Rachel Day is actually going to be our point person in town administration on this, and she has some things to present to us, as well as we'll be able to have a further discussion in terms of racial equity and the things that we can do to help. We do have one other public comment from Bobby Planzer, and he says, congratulations, Melissa and Jason. And I don't think that anybody else
Thank you, Bobby.
Thanks, Bobby.
Raised their hand or put in a Q&A. So we don't have any new business. Approval of warrants and pending contracts. We have payroll warrants, treasury warrants, and pending contracts. We could take them all as one motion unless anybody has any questions.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call: Christy Ferrantella.
Aye.
Melissa Murphy.
Aye.
Jason Bridges.
Aye.
Matt Fay.
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. You've all have changed your order on me somehow. Next, we have a consent item for Richmond Development. I believe that Tucker's on tonight for this. Tucker, did you have a comment before we take action?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is a pretty straightforward item. It relates to an item that was on the agenda a couple of weeks ago. These additional assents are simply there because these particular lots had already been sold by Richmond to other parties, and National Grid requires similar consents in conjunction with these. I also wanted to address a question that came up during the prior assent from Mr. Fee, just with respect to DBW being aware of the utility easements and so forth. I want to confirm that I've had a chance to talk with Rob and the town's consulting engineer, and they are very much aware of this and are comfortable with how things are laid out.
Any questions, comments, motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call: Christy Ferrantella.
Aye.
Melissa Murphy.
Aye.
Jason Bridges.
Aye.
Matt Fay.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, Tucker. Don Holgate, aye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Citizen departmental request, Finance Department request for approval of the sale of $8,112,200 in general obligation bond anticipation notes. Brian?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So before you have a request to approve $8,112,200 in general obligation bond anticipation notes. It's made up of town projects in the amount of $3.5 million, sewer projects in the amount of $3.9 million, airport projects of $467,000, and a water project that we're borrowing $125,000 to cover the initial cost of. The bids were received on June 11th. We received 4 bids, with the winning bid being from TD Securities. The coupon rate on the bond anticipation notes is 1.5%. When you factor the premium in, the net interest cost, which is how the award is managed, was 0.4804%, which, again, in discussing this with Hilltop, who's our financial advisor, it was an extremely competitive rate and is in line with the rate that we got, that you approved last in May. And so we're very happy with it, given the uncertainty still that kind of exists a little bit in the municipal bond market. So the impact would be into the 21 budget, which would be the short-term interest of $46,307.14 that would be paid upon maturity. These notes are timed to mature with the notes that you recently approved in May. So we'll do one large offering versus timing these to a farther date. So I believe that the motion or the vote has been sent to you. So we're asking for a favorable approval of the sale of these notes.
Could someone make a motion that's consistent with the typed up motion? reference it.
I'll make the motion based on the typed up motion we received.
Yeah, can you just say motion to approve based on the vote in your packet dated June 17th, 2020? Or
Yes, that was much better.
Based on the language in our packet dated June 17th, 2020.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call: Christy Ferrantella,
Aye.
Melissa Murphy,
Aye.
Jason Bridges,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
John Holgate, aye. Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you
Brian.
very much.
Town managers report.
Thank you. So we've got a lot going on, as you can see from the report in the packet. I'm not going to go over every single item in here, but what we try to do is sort of categorize the various activities that we're working on. And we've got plans and studies. We're almost going to need a person to manage all the plans that we're working on, but we've got coastal resiliency is getting back underway. Strategic plan, we're working on rescheduling the retreat that the board was going to have, I think this month or last month, to the end of July. We'll get some information out to you shortly about that. Various other plans are being worked on, several COVID-19, various plans and activities, and we're beginning work on a capital project management plan. And some of those things had been on hold, but are getting back going again. Lots of different meetings, one-on-ones with staff, departments, a lot of COVID-related meetings still. We are not out of the woods on meeting about COVID items. Lots of effort and time going into annual town meeting and the election planning. And I would echo all of the thank yous to the town clerk and the school staff and everybody who, the wardens and everybody who put time into getting that set up. It really worked out very well. And we're hoping town meeting will work out just as well. The pre-town meeting forums are taking a lot of time too. I've been doing a weekly webinar sponsored by the Mass Municipal Association that the Lieutenant Governor is at. And you got to listen kind of carefully because sometimes the good information comes from a question that someone has asked. So there's often good information, though, that comes out of that. We're working through some fiscal 21 budget issues and, lots of time on the economic recovery items. And as Rachel will review it shortly, racial equity awareness and other issues relating to that. Lots of projects. As you can see, there are a lot of COVID-related projects, not the least of which is getting the safety measures in place in the various public buildings. Harbor Master Building is still in design and approval with HDC and Concom, same with the town pier. Old fire station reuse. Yes, sometime soon that trailer is going to be set and then we can stop looking at it the way it is now. I have started to modify my travels around the island to avoid going by there. Rob might address this in a minute because I'm going to have him briefly, when I'm done with this, give an update about some DPW projects and current issues. The senior center and the island home are kind of, I wouldn't say they're on hold, but we haven't been able to get back to those. In talking to the chair and vice chair today, I think that sometime soon, perhaps after town meeting, we are going to need a board, either agenda item or maybe even a little workshop about some very large capital items that we're going to need to deal with sort of soon, and those two are among them. We're working on prepping for increased parking enforcement for this summer. Maybe we won't need it as much as we thought, but who knows, because now with the outdoor dining and stuff, it's could get a bit tight. Strategy regarding beach access, back from an October board vote. We have been planning to schedule an executive session on that, and we were ready to do that when COVID took over. So I talked today with town council and real estate specialists, and we're going to work on getting a lot of materials together for the board and get that scheduled. The plastics ban, trying to work on an email to the board about that. I would not say that the plastics ban enforcement is never going to happen. We weren't really planning for enforcement anyway, at least at first. We spent a lot of time doing outreach. And at this point, I think we're not 100% expecting all businesses to comply fully because we understand there have been supply delays with COVID. But we are hoping that by perhaps phase 3 or 4, the businesses will be back into compliance or getting very close to be compliant. And we're going to probably be doing some outreach on this. Plus, there's a video in the works. We got some grants underway in the planning phases. Valet took a bit of time to get going, but we're really glad that they're going to be starting up soon. So we have some personnel issues. We do have a hiring freeze or somewhat of a chill on right now with hiring, except for essential positions. We have actually some applications for the COVID-19 educators. They're going to be interviewed hopefully this week and next and hired as soon as possible. So the idea with them is that they will sort of roam around town and be at the boats at arrival times and politely remind people about face coverings and social distancing and hand washing and all of those safety measures that the governor talks about every press conference, and Roberto talks about it all the time. Just, not enforcing, but gentle reminding. I'm sure that we all can cite recent observations that we've had of people in groups around town who have no face coverings, no social distancing. I hope they're washing their hands, but we wouldn't know that. And it's important that people understand we have put a lot of effort into getting to where we are today. And if we have a spike in cases, we're going to go backwards. So people really need to pay attention to this. It's not a joke. It's not, funny. It's a serious thing. And a lot of people have put a lot of time into this to get us to where we are. So please keep us going, people out there who don't want to wear a mask. Collective bargaining negotiations are ongoing. We're getting a select board executive session scheduled with you all, I think in July. And Rachel's going to talk about a new position we don't know quite what it'll be called yet, but we're calling it equity officer just for the moment, but it probably will change, but something along those lines. If Rob is on, I would go to him to give his DPW update.
Rob, are you there?
Pam.
Hi.
Hello.
Hold on one second. Matt has a comment. Matt, did you have a comment before?
On the COVID educators, I had a suggestion from a citizen, and it's a good one, is they should hand out masks. There's disposable masks that are fairly inexpensive. I bought them here for the employees that forget them. And I think it's something that they could do, or the summer specials, or any of us that are in contact, any of the town staff that's in contact with the public. I think it's, we've got to be setting the example. The police should be wearing them. The summer specials should be wearing them. We should be handing them out.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. That is a good suggestion. The police and the summer specials the police are already wearing them. The summer specials will wear them. We're very much aware of setting an example. The COVID-19 educators are going to have a little kit with them. And among the things in their kit will be masks to hand out to people. Roberto's showing one right now. So covered, but thank you for the reminder and for getting it out there in public.
Yeah, we've ordered over 3,000 masks. We have them in our office.
I think Roberto almost jumped through the screen there.
Thank you. Rob?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair and Madam Town Manager. So DPW has been working through this. Erica just flashed up a pic on the screen there. Part of our continued healthy relationships discussions with Fairwinds, they came over and did they're doing a fantastic gratitude project, which included reaching out to all kinds of businesses and entities around the island who are been working through this COVID-19 scenario. And so it was a nice time to highlight who's been doing the work out there. Thank you for that, Erica. So just a quick highlight of ongoing projects and some of the constraints that we're faced with. Besides facilities and dealing with COVID-19 modifications to buildings, which have been very substantial, as you can imagine, custom outfitting most, if not all, of our town facilities, doing ongoing preventative maintenance, as well as just simple things like seasonal installation of the AC units in all the different buildings. We are doing this work right now. I just did a quick comparison between fiscal 19 last week and this year, fiscal 20. And we are a full 10 people difference. The staff last year was 36 people, and the staff last week was 26 people. So we're down 28% staffing wise, and that doesn't count any allowance for sick time off or anything like that. So just the bandwidth that we're working from to be able to get this work done, including operations, facilities, fleet, solid waste, and just administration towards the year end has been tremendously taxing. Obviously besides brush cutting and tree trimming, doing special projects like clearing out Coffin Park, things like that absolutely need to get done and have been prioritized over a long period of time. Roadside mowing is something that is certainly very difficult to keep up with, particularly this year happens to be just taken off the charts with the weather we've had this spring. We have a combined bi-directional mileage of roadways and bike paths about approaching 300 miles when you do both sides. So there's a tremendous amount of work, and that takes about a solid 4 people from our staff just to be doing mowing. When we start adding regular trash pickup and roadside litter on top of it, it really starts to pick away at the available crew. Drainage maintenance, cleaning, road grading for the gravel roads, pothole filling, sweeping, dealing with encroachments. All these things get reported to us very regularly. We're also keeping up the parks, playgrounds, and fields. Despite going through COVID and having them closed, all those facilities need to continue to be maintained and particularly mowed to be ready to go. Split rail fencing, we did a lot during the late winter, but has really been put on hold for the time being. And then we're dealing with signage for summer and fingers crossed, line painting. Right now, line painting is being scheduled, I believe, last I heard, for next week. So all of these things have been in the works, and most of them have been severely delayed or hampered by COVID-19. We'll be doing beach raking when we can between the bird nesting periods. I talked a lot about the preventative maintenance and ongoing COVID projects. Libby mentioned the 131 Pleasant Street, the trailer. We are working with our architect to bring that to fruition. Our final comments went back to them Monday, and we're also working on the building reuse at the same time. Hazardous materials have been identified in the building, so we're going to have to deal with removal of those for the limited renovations that are planned inside that building. There's a lot of work going on with that. We have a number of transportation projects that we picked up from Mike Burns' exit, and I'm coordinating with Andrew Vorse at Plus, working with a lot of the neighbors and the land bank at Lily Pond and at Consu Springs. We have our new traffic counting station that's been awarded and is underway and is going to be going in soon at Goose Pond at Orange Street. We've been doing facility work at various employee housing locations. Of course, we can't forget the Main Street horse fountain, which happened to get hit and was down. We're working with a off-island vendor to restore that and bring that back just as soon as possible. We have Surfside parking lot drainage and a deck around the building, some improvements there that are planned. We've been replacing street lamps. We're working at, we actually just brought the Children's Beach temporary pumps online today, which should bring some relief to the folks down at Brant Point, and will be ongoing and in place until the future replacement of that pump station is designed and constructed. Underground storage tank and above ground storage tank replacements are underway for the 16 Broad Street Town Building block, the 3 buildings located there. We have ongoing sidewalk and paving projects, drainage projects, roof projects. Nobodier Field House is coming to fruition soon. And it's been my pleasure to coordinate with the Dreamland to bring their drive-in theater to fruition out at Nobodier. So just a sprinkling of some of the things going on.
Thank you, Rob. Very comprehensive report. And appreciate all DPW's work. I know you guys are really strapped and getting out there. And thank you for my air conditioner it was put in today.
You're welcome.
I think that's it for the town manager's report.
Thank you. Next, we move on to select board reports and comments. These are our annual committee appointments, committee and commission appointments. We normally do little slips of paper that everyone hands to me, but we're doing it a little bit differently. Everyone sent their votes for all of the contested races to Erica. So Erica, do you want to go through them? Do you want to put it up on the screen? We can take a blanket vote on the uncontested.
So how about this? You have a number of committees that you can vote on by acclamation. They include Airport Commission, Capcom, Cemetery Commission, the CRC, the Council on Aging, FinCom, HDC Associate, Nantucket Historical Commission, Nantucket Historical Commission Alternate, Planning Board Alternate, REAC, which is the Real Estate Advisory Commission, Roads and Right-of-Way, Scholarship Committee, the Tree Advisory Committee, ZBA and ZBA Alternate. I know that Christy wants to recuse from the Scholarship Committee vote because she is actually an applicant for that. But all of those committees are either, you've got a certain number of seats and a certain number of applicants that equal, or you might have, one less. I think only all of them have been filled with the exception of the Council on Aging and the Roads and Right-of-Way and the Agricultural Commission. So we'll continue to advertise those. But if you all wanted to do some sort of vote to get those out of the way, that would be great.
Okay, should we just take that vote since we're full board with Christy recusing? Does somebody want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to approve those appointments by acclamation, if that's the right motion.
Is there a second? Okay, all those in favor by roll call: Jason Bridges.
Aye.
Melissa Murphy.
Aye.
Matt Fay.
Aye.
And John Holgate, aye. And then we have a smaller list of.
So you have some other seats that were contested, and everybody sent me their votes already. Nobody saw each other's votes. They came to me, and I have records of those if anybody has questions. For the Board of Health, you had 2 seats and 6 applicants. The applicants were Ann Smith, Meredith Lepre, Stephen Visco, Helene Weld, Terry Noyes, and Susan McFarland. Do you want me to say who voted for who? So the chair, Dawn, voted for Stephen Visco and Helene Weld. Jason voted for Meredith Lepre and Stephen Visco. Matt voted for Stephen Visco and Susan McFarland. Christy voted for Meredith Lepre and Stephen Visco, and Melissa voted for Meredith Lepre and Stephen Visco. So that came out with Meredith Lepre getting 3 votes, Stephen Visco getting 5, Helene Weld 1, and Susan McFarland 1. So Mary Lepre and Stephen Visco would be your new members there.
Congratulations.
Concom, you had 2 seats available and 4 applicants. Incumbent Mark Beal, incumbent Ashley Arisman, Sean Perry, and Linda Williams. Dawn voted for Mark Beal and Linda Williams. Jason voted for Mark Beal and Linda Williams. Matt voted for Ashley Arisman and Sean Perry. Christy voted for Mark Beal and Linda Williams. And Melissa voted for Ashley Arisman and Linda Williams. So Mark Beal received 3 votes, Ashley Arisman 2, Sean Perry 1, and Linda Williams 4. So the new CONCOM members are Linda Williams and Mark Beal. And if I'm going too fast, just let me know.
Well, thank you. Congratulations.
Okay. The next contested seat was for the Council for Human Services. I did get a call today. Linda Williams, who was the incumbent, did withdraw her name from this race. So you had 6 seats available and a new 10 applicants, including Joseline Ramirez, Brooke Moore, Claudia Valle, Cindy Rivera, Athelin Sweeney, Cessna Morales Torres, Andrew Mulcahy, Lori Richards, Vanessa Rendero, and Ana Valeria Alonso. So Dawn voted for Brooke Moore, Claudia Valle, Cindy Rivera, Athelin Sweeney, Lori Richards, and Vanessa Rendero. Jason voted for Joseline Ramirez, Brooke Moore, Cindy Rivera, Athelin Sweeney, Lori Richards, and Vanessa Rendero. Matt voted for Brooke Moore, Claudia Valle, Cindy Rivera, Athelin Sweeney, Vanessa Rendero, and Ana Valeria Alonso. Christy voted for Joseline Ramirez, Brooke Moore, Claudia Valle, Cindy Rivera, Vanessa Rendero, and Ana Valeria Alonso. And Melissa voted for Joseline Ramirez, Brooke Moore, Claudia Valle, Cindy Rivera, Athelin Sweeney, and Vanessa Rendero. So the votes tallied at Joseline Ramirez with 3, Brooke Moore with 5, Claudia Valle with 4, Cindy Rivera with 5, Athelin Sweeney with 4, none for Cessna Morales Torres or Andrew Mulcahy. Lori Richards received 2, Vanessa Rendero 5, and Ana Valeria Alonso 2. So the 6 new members are going to be Joseline Ramirez, Brooke Moore, Claudia Valle, Cindy Rivera, Athelin Sweeney, and Vanessa Rendero. Congratulations to them.
Congratulations.
Cultural Council, there are 3 seats available and 4 applicants. Michael Kopko, John Balash, Emma Young, and Maura Wendelkin. Dawn voted for Michael Kopko, Emma Young, and Maura Wendelkin. Jason voted for Michael Kopko, Emma Young, and Maura Wendelkin. Matt voted for Michael Kopko, John Balash, and Emma Young. And then Christy and Melissa also voted for Michael Kopko, Emma Young, and Maura Wendelkin. So that was Michael Kopko with 5 votes, John Balash with 1, Emma Young with 5, and Maura Wendelkin with 4. So the new members of Cultural Council are Michael Kopko, Emma Young, and Maura Wendelkin. And then I think this is the last contested, which was the Nantucket Affordable Housing Trust. 3 seats available with 4 applicants. You had Rima Sherry, Howard Dickler, Allison Mitchell, and Brian Sullivan. Dawn, Jason, Christy, and Melissa all voted for Rima Sherry, Allison Mitchell, and Brian Sullivan. Matt voted for Rima Sherry, Howard Dickler, and Brian Sullivan. So Rima Sherry received 5 votes, Howard Dickler 1, Allison Mitchell 4, and Brian Sullivan 5. So the 3 new members are Rima Sherry, Allison Mitchell, and Brian Sullivan.
Thank you, Erica. Thanks for putting that all together. And I mean, thank you everyone who had interest. Congratulations to the people who were appointed. And these are always really tough decisions when they're contested. And I hope that, everyone out there continues to want to be a part of town government. Melissa?
We also send a thank you out to incumbents who did not get voted back in and thank them for their service.
We send several letters. So everyone who served and didn't re-up, they get a thank you. Everyone who applied and did not get appointed gets a thank you and an encouragement to apply again. So everyone is acknowledged for sure.
Wonderful. Thank you, Eric. I knew you did that. I just wanted to note that tonight at the meeting. Thank you.
Dawn, you're muted.
I said a lot with that while I was on mute. Next, we move into a discussion update as to racial equity, race relations task force community forum, continued from June 20th, 2020. And I'd like to turn it over to Rachel to give us some thoughts.
Thank you. I just want to present you with some of the things that town admin has been working on before you enter into your discussion again. So one thing that we wanted to try and do and understand to make sure we had the right focus and the right tools. We sort of began some education internally and looking at what other communities are doing, as well as what the reputable resources are that are out there. One of these things that we did is there were several staff members through DPW, as well as I believe 2 of our select board members, Mr. Bridges and Mrs. Farentella, as well as myself, HR Amanda Perry, and a few members of the Island Home actually participated in a webinar that was held on Friday, June 12th. It was done through the Racial Equity Institute called Groundwater. It was actually a very good presentation on them and a good resource. They basically helped better understand how systematic racism permeates through every level of our society in a way that maybe we unknowingly even know that it exists to create racial disparities. And we utilized some of that knowledge that we gained, Amanda and myself through HR, as well as Greg with town administration. We started developing a RFP. And what we wanted to get out of this was to develop a diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic plan. So another plan. And some of the things that it will hopefully pull out for us is current practices and procedures, as well as understanding what our current overall agency culture is and what we need to do to better them. Through certain focus groups, surveys, employees, and other town officials and boards understand how we can, what their view is of what our current policies, procedures, and attitudes are, and how we can implement a town-wide program, not just internally, but also through the community. Probably develop a couple public focus groups to help us understand. I know you guys last time talked about potentially having a facilitator for a community forum, and maybe this can help us develop that as well. Some short and long-term strategic plan goals, and then also some type of manual to help guide us in terms of what maybe some training gaps might be, and develop a training plan. And some of those things that we wanted to get out of there that were listed in our RFP were understanding and recognizing what the structural inequalities were, what our best practices to promote a welcoming and inclusive environment, getting some shared common language and knowledge, and then future employee education. We had sort of hoped that we would have this available within the next week or two, but now we're looking that this might be probably advertised more in July, and only because of additional review, I think is what we wanted to do, and I'll explain that in a minute. Libby sort of touched on this earlier. We have already begun the process of discussing, and we're not sure exactly what the title is, but either an equity or diversity office within the town. This is also something that we're seeing a lot of other towns are doing. And we are working, Amanda is focusing, Human Resources is focusing on looking at other job descriptions that already exist and what we want that officer to look like here in our community, and then sort of looking at what they have to make sure that we're encompassing everything. We really want them to focus on building trust in the community and provide equal access for residents and assist in employee relations. And by employee relations, we're talking about not only internal employee interactions, but also how our employees are interacting with the public, because most of our employees are providing a public service. We are seeing some challenges as we try to look at this specific position, as well as what the office itself might look like. Funding obviously is one. So our finance director is looking into that right now. Where in the organization chart they might fall. There's obviously some bargaining obligations with the unions, whether they're a union position or not. Those are all some things that are being worked out. And then office location. So as we all know, office discussions and where they're located has always been a topic. So we do have our real estate and housing specialist helping and assisting that as we go through the process. So we are also potentially looking at and developing not only an internal, but an external task force. And they would work with this office or this one position and assist in implementing whatever the deliverables might be as the plan and training plans are developed through the RFP that we're looking to provide. For the external, one thing that we have thought of is looking for the Council for Human Services, which thankfully just appointed many members to the board, which has been inactive for a while, but knowing that we had such great candidates and we're hopefully going to have a full board that they can start meeting, that we thought that this would be a great task for this group to take on. And if not, obviously something for you all to discuss and decide. If that's not a direction for them specifically to go in, potentially developing a separate diversity advisory board. We're seeing this occurring in other towns. We're not sure if it's because they don't have a board like the Human Services or if, it's just a very specific focused board. But they could also potentially assist in a community forum or other events as well as community relations. And then the internal task force, we were looking towards utilizing what we already have as the Nantucket Employee Empowerment Team. And they would help us organize our internal efforts. So what we thought one of the tasks that we could utilize them for was reviewing the draft RFP that we had before advertising it to see if there's anything that they would like to see added or things that we didn't think of, as well as the job description. For those of you not familiar with who this group is, I believe it consists of 17 members right now who are from multiple town departments. The goal was to try to get at least a representative from each department, and they're about a little over halfway there, I believe. And so their mission ultimately is to empower employees to recognize and utilize what skills they have to provide exceptional customer service. So we see that that group could help with this and evolve and build upon their current mission. And lastly, we have about 2 different items that we, town admin is looking with collaboration with the select board on. So we had scheduled in mid-June with Novak Consulting another strategic plan retreat for the select board. And that would be to review and look at your current strategic plan. And right now you do not have specific items under the quality of life goal. So this would likely be part of that discussion. And since we had to reschedule that, we're currently looking at a tentative date at the end of July. And then lastly, there is a pledge that I believe you all will discuss shortly in a draft form in the packet. And once you finalize that pledge, we will hopefully take that and utilize that to help guide our task force, as well as to ensure that we are continuing to commit to the pledges that are acknowledged by the board. So when you finalize that, we can utilize that to help guide both the internal and external task force, as well as making sure our RFP is in line with that. And I think that's the bulk of what I have.
Thank you, Rachel. You've put a tremendous amount of effort along with other town administration into this. And I'd just love to hear the board's initial reactions and possibly input on the pledge and so forth. Jason, you're unmuted.
That was an accident, but yeah. I have lots of thoughts. So I'll just put a couple out there and then we can all start our talking. Thank you, Rachel and town administration, for heading down this path and putting the time into it. It seems very extensive, which is great because it should be. this, like the more that I dig into this, and I've only been scratching the surface in racial equity for 2 years, so definitely not any close to an expert, not even close. What I've been hearing for a long time is to do really, really great equity work, it's 6 to 10 years to actually see any difference. So I just want to make sure we all understand that 2 more terms of select board, like, I mean, this is, we're just starting something really, really big, maybe a decade, to see major changes in our schools and our town administration. It doesn't mean we don't need to start with short-term actions. I just kind of wanted to make sure we all understand how big this is. And doing the work in our town departments is essential. We have to do the work individually. We have to do it at home. We have to dig in, and there's a lot of trauma there. There's a lot of, this is not easy work to do. And it's, whether you're black, brown, or white, this is not easy work to do. And those are just my first thoughts. So I'm glad we're doing this, but I'm glad we're doing this. And this is a long process. So when we're looking for money, we need to think about FY21, FY22, FY23. I'll stop there.
Has everybody had a chance to look over the pledge at this point, Melissa?
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel and town administration, for the commitment to, and I think quick on your feet action. It can be really frustrating, and I think to echo Jason's comments, it can be frustrating for the public because what we're talking about is really analyzing the systematic racism that exists in our policies and our community actions, which are going to both be difficult to look at and are going to take effort to change. But if the purpose of this pledge is committing to the effort to make that change, I think it's a really great first step. I do have, and I'm looking forward to talking about the details of the strategic plan, whether this fits into quality of life, or if it really needs to be a standalone category. So I think that bears some discussion from us. A question that's come up with to me, and obviously it's probably rooted in my experience on the school committee, is there collaboration we can do with there's a new superintendent coming in, and working with that superintendent and the chair of the school committee. They work every day with a very diverse population, and I think having some town-wide joint commitment on doing this work together would be really beneficial for everybody. And then I think just lastly, I also liked what you said, Rachel. It was very quick, but that we can start to, so we temper the frustration of the long-term changes. What are we looking for some short-term changes? What are some short-term goals that we can demonstrate to our committee that our community, that this is not just the formation of committees that are going to meet and not come up with actionable plans. And so I think for me, I'm going to be really focused on the long-term work, but also what are some demonstrable things that we can show the community quickly that we're taking steps. And you outlined some really good ones, Rachel. So thank you. There was a lot in what you reported, and I'm excited to break it down. Thank you.
Christy?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Jason and Melissa have already said about thanking Rachel and town administration for starting to look into this. I know the last couple of weeks, Select Board has been asking for input and kind of how just the community can work together to work on anti-racism policies. And it's really impressive to see how much Rachel and the rest of town administration has done in the past 2 weeks to put together some concrete ideas. In terms of the statement that was provided, and this is kind of my take on it, is I know that right now a lot of the focus is on police brutality and relationships with local police departments. And I think Melissa's comment about focusing on education, and there's so many areas, organizational racism is what exists, structural racism. And I think we have to take a statement that is a little bit wider of how we're going to tackle this across every part of our community, from our judiciary system, education, police, town admin, every real estate. It's everywhere, no matter where you look. And I just think that a policy or a statement that is a little bit more broad than just focusing on police is something that I would feel a little bit more comfortable. Maybe this could be a step 1, but something to look at for step 2. Thank you.
Matt, did you have a comment? I was waiting to.
No, that's just quick. First, I kind of find I like a lot of the work. I want to be positive. I think the small work groups to identify inequities, I think that should be sooner rather than later. I think we have to hear out the current grievances and address those if possible, and find the right protocol, right policies. Not even policies, right protocol to do that. I think that's important. I think we have to be I agree with Jason about this is going to be a long time. I haven't worked on this as long as he has, but I think the little I have, I think that this has to be sort of in the fabric of how we do things, and change in any institution is very difficult. So this is going to be very difficult and take a while. I agree the idea of I'm just reading the notes I put in the idea of using human services. That new group, if they're willing to step up in some manner, I think is great. A lot of them, I think, are stepping up for some of these reasons. So that could be a good, that would be a good start. And then, and we talk about being uncomfortable. I'm kind of uncomfortable with all of us, a group that's predominantly white, and hiring a consultant and saying we're gonna, I just feel a little uncomfortable that I think the process we have to be willing. I'm uncomfortable saying what the process is going to be or has to be, and I think that it will evolve. I think the process will evolve when we get the initial input, and we have to be ready to do that. I think we have to avoid sort of our institutional, this is the town, this is how we do it mindset, because we may get thrown some curveballs in the midst of this. So that's all I have for now.
Jason?
Yeah, thank you, Matt, for that last part. I had written down the RFP process. Should that be, I know it's a chicken or the egg, right? We want to do this, we want to start this work fast. Should the task force or the Council on Human Services, or is anybody else that can review the RFP along with our always get the acronyms wrong, employee empowerment team. I know that it's a diverse group, but should community members also be involved? Kind of what is Matt saying with that RFP to get some more feedback?
So I'll just say I probably spoke way too quickly, as Melissa said. I think that was our thought, is to have both of these groups participate in that. It's sort of hard to encompass what the RFP does. I very briefly touched on what the deliverables were. We really tried. Amanda did some great work looking into what other towns had already provided in terms of what short-term goals were as long as long-terms. And I think we recognize what Matt is saying is this isn't something that we can develop. This isn't something the select board can develop, or town admin, or any of our departments, as great as they are. We really were looking towards an agency or company or group that specializes this and has something like this Racial Equity Institute that has this working knowledge that we are just learning as we go right now, and trying to recognize and have the difficult conversations to recognize that these could exist within the town and how do we address them. So rather than us trying to do that work, engaging somebody to help us in the short term, the long term. But I think it was our goal is to have this off. We wanted to get the position potentially up and running, considering that these tasks were there. They would work as well with the internal and external task force to do this review. I agree with you. This is not going to be solved overnight or next month or a year. So there are things that can be addressed now. And we're also recognizing that there are things that this is very long coming, which is why we incorporated it or started having the discussion of potentially utilizing the strategic plan to make sure that that momentum continued on this topic.
I would just a couple of quick comments. I mean, I agree with everything that people have been saying. I'd like to also get the input from both groups on what kind of our proclamation mission statement is on this. And I think that we should further develop it as a piece of our strategic plan before we fully make this proclamation. I think that there are a lot more encompassing things, like Christy said, to put into it. I'd very much like to hear from other people. I think Melissa has a great idea with really engaging more directly with the school committee and the superintendent to encompass in our next generations. And definitely, Council for Human Services, we just constituted a great group. This should go straight to them. They should work with whoever might be the new hire. And there was something else I was going to say, but Melissa had her hand up, so I'll go to you.
I think Jason had his hand up first, so I'll
all right, Jason, did I skip over you?
No, I was just going to respond. Thank you, Rachel, for the clarification. It makes sense to me now to next couple of weeks to do an RFP to hire a team, a facilitator to come here and engage our community to ask what they want, to help the town, if that's what you're saying, to help the town develop these short and long-term plans. If that's the case, then it makes sense to me to do the RFP on a quicker basis. If they're coming here to do the focus groups, to ask our community of color, to ask our Black community, to work with our town to figure out what's a short-term 3-year plan, then I think that makes sense. Is that kind of what we're thinking?
Yes.
Melissa?
Thank you. I think that the one, it would be great, Rachel, maybe to send a bullet point out of all the things that you talked about, like just a quick bullet point email, because there were so many different things. I agree. I would like to sit with the proclamation for a minute. I don't think the proclamation is a heavy lift for us to do. I don't think we need feedback from people to make a proclamation that we're committed to doing work to make Nantucket more just and equitable. So I don't want to get so caught up in getting feedback that we don't do the work ourselves. That is our responsibility to do, to make the commitment and dedication to our entire community that we're here to do this work and we see these issues and we're going to tackle them. So I'd like to sit with the proclamation, but I think that maybe with some edits sent to Dawn and some feedback, we could come back next week with a commitment that feels organic to this board and our community and what that commitment looks like. And that's separate from hiring a person, and that's separate from an RFP. It's sort of like, it's the base foundation. And then I also think, just to the point of having a strategic plan, just like we do, and I've seen this board do time and time again, when a vote comes to you for something that maybe relates to coastal management, you refer back to your strategic plan and you say, is this in line with that? The strategic plan is really a compass heading and gives us a lens through which we can filter those policy decisions and ask ourselves, is this policy in alignment with our goal to be more equitable? And that's what I think the purpose of it is. I don't want to get so caught up in the quote unquote work that we're not able to move forward. So we need feedback. We need the community. I think the Council for Human Services is a wonderful group of people now, and I think they're going to be committed to doing good work. I fully support hiring a position. I'm excited to see what that job description looks like. And at the same time, I think we can quickly pivot to a proclamation of what our values are as a board and our commitment to the community is. Thank you.
We do have a comment from Brooke Moore. She said there are firms that do this work with community assessment being just the first phase. Chris.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on Brooke's comment that I know Jason and I heard from, it's the Race Equity and Leadership Initiative when we were at the MMA conference this past January. And they worked really closely with other Massachusetts towns. And I think we had talked about this a little bit back in January, was like, how do towns be more proactive rather than reactive? And I know a lot of towns right now with the current climate are really kind of being reactive. And I think something like that, or I know there's other places like All Aces that Brooke sent around that can help us, be reactive in the moment, but also prepare us to be proactive in our community.
Melissa?
I'm sorry. And just one last comment that, there are employees of the town, including our health director, who are people of color and who can play really vital roles in giving us that feedback, lived experience, and helping us shape these priorities. So I would hope that we're not looking, we need to look in and we need to look out, but we've got wonderful people in our community who have experienced systematic racism, even from their own board members. And I think it's really important that we hear those stories and we let them help us heal those wounds and move forward.
It's very important to me to hear input because I don't think that we can fully understand the extent of the problem and to make real meaningful long-term change without that input. And I just want to make sure that we are creating the safe space where people feel like they can speak out both internally and externally of the town without any repercussions. I just want to make sure that we're really hearing from everybody on what all the problems are. And I think that this is a good start. We're going to continue to have this on the agenda. I think board members can send feedback to Rachel before next meeting on potential edits of the proclamation. And hopefully we'll get more feedback from others. Melissa?
I'm so sorry to be a nudge, but just to also confirm if Rachel could send that bullet point list of all the items she covered to us, because I want to make sure I didn't miss anything in my notes about all the steps she proposed tonight. That will help me make sure that I can digest those and see them through that lens. You did a great presentation, Rachel. It was so rich. I just want to make sure I don't miss anything.
Yep, I can send that tomorrow, and then the proclamation so that you can just reply any edits or anything to me.
Do we have anything further for tonight on this discussion? Thanks everyone. Committee reports. We will be figuring out a reconstitution of our committees that we each serve on. Erica?
Sorry, on that note, Dawn, tomorrow there is a Board of Health meeting at 1:00. Rita has been your representative to that board. She is no longer on. Is it possible for anyone to be just like a temporary rep at that meeting tomorrow until you appoint a new representative full-time?
Melissa?
I'd be more than happy to volunteer. I actually marked down that meeting to attend to it. So unless any other board member would like to go, I'm planning on being there.
That would be fine with me. Christy's giving me a thumbs up. I can't see Matt. Jason,
I'm fine with
that. Okay, that sounds great. Thank you, Melissa. And we'll be passing around the list, I would imagine electronically, of people's interest in other subcommittees. And we'll try and figure that all out next week. We'll also be doing the election of chair and vice chair for county, which has to be separate from the chair and vice chair for select board. Anything else for committee reports? I see Roberto turned his camera back on. Nope, then it's back off.
No, I'll just, I had it on just to put my thumbs up when Melissa was saying she would be quiet.
Okay.
But Melissa, thank you. It's very often that people forget that Hispanics are also members of color, of the communities of color. And the same systematic oppression that we see is also silently done to us as well. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Dawn, it's Matt.
Matt, go ahead.
On committee reports, coastal resiliency met for the first time since all of this. Yesterday, day before, there'll be a recommendation to follow NOAA high projections. That'll be forthcoming probably soon. And it was interesting to sort of work on Zoom and try to work in any details. It was kind of difficult, but we met for about an hour and a half.
Great, thank you. I did have a CBC meeting yesterday, but it was very brief. We just did some financial releases. But it's nice to see some of the subcommittees meeting again. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call: Jason Bridges.
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella.
Aye.
Melissa Murphy.
Aye.
Matt Fee.
Aye, and goodbye.
Bye. Todd Holgate, aye. Everybody have a good night. See you
Congratulations, Melissa.
tomorrow.
Welcome, Melissa.
Bye.